Depending on what part of the country you're from or what neighborhood you grew up in, you call them Chucks, you call them Chuck Taylors. When I was in high school in Chicago, in the city, not a suburb, we just called them Chuck Taylors. Some articles, some records that I saw said Chuck Taylor invented the shoe. No, he didn't. Chuck Taylor invented Chuck Taylor. That was the invention, and he reinvented himself as time went on. The shoe was created in 1917 when Chuck was still in high school. He was born in a log cabin. Brown County was the last county where he was born, no city, just Brown County, was the last county in Indiana to get water and electricity. He was born in 1901. I don't think it received those modern amenities until later. They moved to Bartholomew County, a small town there, but he went to high school in Columbus. And he went to high school, it was the nearest school to where Chuck lived that had a basketball team. Not every high school had a basketball team in the teens of the 20th century. But Columbus did, Columbus being almost a mid-major city for the state of Indiana. He was aggressive. He was the captain of his team as a sophomore. That stood out to me. He was not necessarily the star of the team. They had a couple of good players for a couple of years in the teens, for 2 or maybe 3 years in the teens. They went to the state tournament. They never won the state tournament. He played for some teams in Indianapolis. He played most notably, though, in Akron, Ohio. He played for a year there. He went to Detroit, and it was from Detroit that he goes to Chicago and gets a job working for the Midwest region of Converse. Converse had its own team. In the late 20s for sure, he was the player coach. The idea of a player coach would not have been unusual then. And they only carried 6 or 7 players. So the player coach, it had to be a player coach. And they did exhibitions, basically. They would come into town and they would challenge local teams. That was a big deal for local teams because you got to play a traveling team. The traveling team had some status. He became a full-time salesman, and I know by 1931, really 1930, because it shows up in the 1931 yearbook, Converse yearbook, well regarded, widely distributed. He already has his picture in it, and he's touting good players across the country. For the next year, he has his all-star teams. He says who are the best players in the country. So between 1926-27, when he's a player coach, he has some prominence, to 1930-31, where it's almost his yearbook. He was the face of Converse by 1930-31. What happened in those intervening years, he was just a good salesman. There were a few people who remembered him. They said, yeah, he actually lived out of his, the trunk of his car. He had his clothes with him. He'd go to hotels. He always put everything on the expense account. He did not get a large salary, but he had no expenses. Even when he was the sales manager of Converse, he traveled, he visited places, mostly colleges later in his career. It's fair to say he went to almost every college, and he also went to the NAIA tournament, which was the small college tournament in Kansas City every year. Chuck would go there with dozens of pairs of shoes, and he would just outfit people if they wore out their shoe, if they had a problem. He would give the players the shoes at the tournaments. Otherwise, he would sell them. I know when I was growing up, you would see Ted Williams' name on baseball bats, Mickey Mantle's name. Everything had an autograph. But number one, that is his signature, and that was put in 30-31, when his face starts to show up in the Converse yearbook. I don't know that he started that trend. I think that trend probably, or that pattern probably existed, but he exploited it well. One record says he improved the shoe. I love that word. He improved the shoe by suggesting that a patch be put on the ankle. Today it's just a vinyl stamping. It's nothing. In the early shoes, it was a little bit of a rubber or leather patch that had maybe a 1/16 of an inch thickness. The fact that it was on the inner ankle does make some sense, because when you're running, you can knock your inner ankle. The best part of the shoe was the sole. The sole had good grip. You could start and stop faster than any other shoe. And in fact, to this day, the sole is patented. The game is part of his legacy. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1969, just a few months before he died, as a contributor. Not as a player, not as a coach, but as a contributor. His contribution was he was like the Johnny Appleseed of basketball.